Welcome, everyone, to another Thursday evening stroll around your celestial neighborhood. I'm Irene Pease, your friendly neighborhood astronomer. Super excited to be here for yet another Thursday indoors. It's actually nice outside, so maybe go out and do that at some point. But in the meantime, we are going to be taking a look at the spring skies. Not the real skies, but the simulated skies you can see in the background now. We have Open Space, which you can download for free at openspaceproject.com. Check that out, fly around the universe, all the fun things. And in a moment, we're going to pop over to Stellarium, which you can find a download at stellarium.org. Yeah, it's been spring actually for a few weeks, but I just haven't really gotten around to doing springy things because, things pile up and cleaning and stuff. And yeah. So, yeah, spring skies. So, what's going to be up in the spring skies? Well, lots of things. And really, this is a great weekend for spring things because it's going to be a new moon, and spring is a time for dark things. So, let's jump right in and see what's up in our current skies and then looking ahead for the next couple months, the spring times. So here we have Stellarium, really great for planning your observing sessions. Carry it with me everywhere I go on my phone. And so here's the beautiful Brooklyn evening skies. We have kind of our winter and early spring constellations moving over towards the sunset. Yeah, the sun is still kind of working on it over there. So that was one thing I kind of wanted to just tap into was twilight. So normally I would be looking at 8, or maybe 9, but even towards the end of spring, 9 isn't quite dark enough and we have to go to 10. So we're going to start looking and seeing what's happening at 10 o'clock at night. So, staying up a little bit later for those beautiful evening views because we have this thing called twilight. And actually, if we just go back, I'll just jammer on through this. 3 different types of twilight, right? So you have sunset, and then until the sun is 6 degrees below the horizon, you have what we call civil twilight. Civil, I guess, you can be civil, and you don't really need like extra like artificial light to read and do most of the things that you would normally want to do. So between 6 and 12 degrees, if the sun is between 6 and 12 degrees below the horizon, and it takes a different amount of time to do that at different times of year because of the ecliptic, which I'll just pop on here because I can. Ecliptic. So when the ecliptic is more perpendicular to the horizon around sunset, then we move through these twilights more quickly. Other times of year, if it's different angles of the horizon, then we'll move through those twilights more slowly. But coming back to now-ish, so between 6 and 12 degrees, we have nautical. So that's where it's getting hard for, I guess, the nautical folks to really see the horizon on the ocean. So that gets, tricky. So there's nautical twilight. And then astronomical twilight is basically between when the sun is between 12 and 18 degrees. So it's degrees of 6. So 6, 12, 18. So 12 to 18 degrees below the horizon. There you can basically make most astronomical observations. But then beyond that, it's like super duper dark. Of course, if you have light pollution, then it kind of never really gets from astronomical twilight to dark, or even nautical twilight to dark. Or if you're in Brooklyn, maybe civil twilight to dark. Because let's face it, I don't actually need my red light in the Nethermead. I bring it just to pretend that it's darker than it is. So we have different degrees of twilight, but we're going to be kind of focusing, what did I say, around 10 p.m. So that's the 22 in this time frame, and seeing what's happening that time of night. So I guess we can lose the ecliptic because we're not going to be talking so much about solar system stuff for the spring. The planets are kind of for the next couple months, and I'll fill you in on those as we go. So yeah, there's Mars, but the big things, like the big, like exciting, Like, this is the time to see this stuff, is one thing I mentioned last week. Galaxies. Yeah. So we're in a galaxy, so we can see that. And actually, if we move a bit through our season, I'm going to see if I can zoom out a little bit, see more sky, fisheye. There's our fisheye. Maybe that's too much fisheye. If we zoom a little bit through our season, then we kind of get, oh, there goes the moon. We kind of get this ring of the galaxy almost around the horizon. Just a little bit later. See how 9 o'clock. Oh, look at all that twilightiness, and I don't mean astronomical twilight. Whew. So just like a month from now, look how bright it's going to be at 9 o'clock at night. Okay, so we have this kind of haze around the horizon, I think, because this isn't actually supposed to be Brooklyn. This is supposed to be the Netherlands. Anywho, but we almost have like a ring of the Milky Way around the horizon because we are looking straight up, up in the direction away from the plane of the Milky Way. In fact, our galactic pole is up here. That's another fun thing. Galactic pole. There's our NGP. That's your North Galactic Pole. And you'll never guess which constellation it's in. Well, maybe you will, but because it's not a very well-known constellation. It's the right angle constellation. Yeah, just kidding. That's hair. That's some right hair. Coma Berenices. So last time I think we had looked at Leo, and I said, oh, here's like, a sickle and a question mark thing. And we saw the end of Leo had Vesta plowing through it, right? So if you haven't seen that, go see that. But then also I looked and said, oh, look, here's a bunch of red dots. So if we turn on the dots, there's some dots, I think. Oh, there's some dots. All right, and you have to zoom in because they're kind of faint. That's a little weird. Virgo really up close, right? So we have the Virgo galaxy cluster, and there's this whole like loop of relatively bright ones. The Mercurian's chain. I just butchered that, but yeah, a whole bunch of beautiful galaxies, relatively bright for galaxies, in there. And then also there's a group called the Coma Cluster. So there's a Coma cluster of stars. It's a Coma star cluster. And then there's also a Coma cluster of galaxies up in here. They're a bit farther away, much, much further away, actually, than the Virgo cluster. So another rich ground of targets for galaxy hunters for galaxy season. There's also several up in the Big Dipper area and the hunting dogs just kind of below the handle. Yeah, this thing, it's not another hot dog. That's a pair of hunting dogs, believe it or not. Canis fanatici. And there's a whole bunch more galaxies in there. So when we flip back over to open space, we'll kind of take a look at some of those. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The other thing that you should look for this week, so can't flip over to open space without giving you a very specific assignment. So one, look for Coma Berenices. It's a challenge, right? So that's a bit of a challenge for the week. And it's kind of fun. Fun fact, North Galactic Pole is up there. So it's kind of between the brighter constellations of Leo and Boötes, right? So bright star Arcturus. So if you follow the handle of the Big Dipper, we arc to Arcturus. Sorry, hoping not making people motion sick. But kind of between Leo, the brightest star in Leo, that's Regulus. Between Regulus and Arcturus, it's kind of a reach. Maybe try to look between the tail star Denebula in Leo. So between Denebula and Arcturus is the bottom. That's the really faint part of Coma Berenices. But if you can find like these other stars up here, it's just a little hook. But you can see in binoculars the Coma star cluster, and then with a telescope you can try to pick out some of the galaxies up there. The other thing that I just have to mention is that the nova is still out. So let's come back to you know, this month to get back to Nova Land. So the Nova and Cassiopeia checked last week just for you. And yes, it's still out. So again, if you follow part of, I guess, the taller, pointier bit, I forget if that's om nom or nom om nom, but this bit of the jaws, Cassiopeia, kind of out that same distance. In binoculars or telescope, you might be able to pick out the, turn on my markers, the cluster M52, yeah, 52, bubble nebula I couldn't really see, but right up in here, there's your little kind of zigzag of stars between M52 and this other brighter star. So you have this star, and then the nova is right about here in this blank spot of the sky, and it's about the same brightness as like this star. So it's about like 7, like upper 7s. This is 7, 8. So it looked about that bright in my telescope last weekend. So if you haven't seen it, if you have a telescope, definitely go try and check that out. Super fun. See a nova. Not every day we get to see those in amateur telescopes. Wow, look at all those fun things. All right, all those fun things that we're not going to talk about. So we're here to talk about this big blank spot in the sky. So the main thing, I guess, as we're moving forward and looking at the specifics, the galaxies, and then another type of object that I want us to look at because they're bright and sparkly, is we want dark skies. So you want astronomical twilight or darker if you have the dark skies, and also you want a new moon. So like this weekend we have a new moon for April, and then the May new moon will be, in May, like a month from now, around the 11th. I think the 11th is a new moon. Because we're looking for faint stuff up there in the sky. And we're looking out of the plane of the Milky Way galaxy, so seeing other galaxies and other faint stuff in our own. So to see that, let's hop on over to the open space. Open space. And I see some people have already mentioned in the chat, yes, globular clusters. Okay, yeah, so that's the other thing, the globular clusters. Oh, and I forgot to mention, okay, so I'm just going to mention party at the end. Okay, I know I forget things. This is why I write stuff down. So in open space, I mentioned galaxies. So I thought it'd be fun to just turn on the galaxies if we can. Normally I don't turn them on when we're this close to home, so to speak. But I can dig up some galaxy sets. A lot of the nearest galaxies, like several thousand of them, are in the Tully galaxy set. It's like this big cube-shaped data set, and they come in different pretty colors to indicate their kind of groupiness. So, wow, look at those. All those dots, those are galaxies. Those are not stars. Those are galaxies. And if I cheat and turn on, I wonder if this will work. Constellations usually get a little bit. Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. Constellations. So we can kind of see where our constellations are, and then it can hunt over for Virgo. Oh, there we go. We'll just follow the ecliptic to the Virgo. And crab, snake thing, lion, lady with some sheath of corn. All right, there we are. And just for kicks, because we can, I think I'll go ahead and turn off the Earth and its atmosphere because who wants to look through that? So yeah, so out here we can see all these dots. So a lot more dots than like what I'd be able to see in like a 10-inch telescope. But right in here, you see like this nice clumpiness. So this is our Virgo cluster That's kind of like downtown, so that's a lot of galaxies. They're around like 50 to 65-ish million light years away, so relatively close. There are several that are much closer, so some that are up in Ursa Major are a bit closer. But then you also see this very concentrated area, so that's by the Hare. So there's that more concentrated Coma Cluster. It's not so much that it's denser, it's just a lot further away. So those galaxies are on the order of like 300 million light years away. So almost, what is that, 5 times further away, from 50 or 60 million to about 300 million. So there are a few of those. I want to say 4889 is one of the brighter ones in there that you can see with like reasonable sized amateur telescope. So NGC 4889, I think, is the brightest one in here. And and Dave can correct me if I missed that number. Also some in Leo, and again up in there's some really nice face on, like big, like spirally ones. Of course, one of my favorites, the Whirlpool Galaxy out here in the Hunting Dogs. I often think of them as being part of Ursa Major, like the Big Bear, but then I'm like, oh yeah, there's another constellation there. It's like kind of almost forgotten, even more forgotten than the Hare. um, so just for fun, because we can, I thought it'd be fun just to fly out there and visit real quick, like, and then yeah, we can come back in a bit. Think, yeah. So we fly out. Maybe turn off the constellations because we won't want those where we're going. But just out of this galaxy. Yeah. There goes. That's kind of weird. Yeah, so there goes our Milky Way galaxy. And then out just, yeah, into... Oh, the galaxy's far, far away. Because I just feel like, taking a little ride tonight. Just in the mood for a ride. Yeah, so if we swing around here, we can see kind of this bit in here. That's the Virgo cluster. And then if we come out, I promise I actually didn't practice this. This is about as live and raw as it gets. It's been one of those weeks. I don't know if we come out a bit, if we can catch the Coma cluster. Maybe if I turn on, we do have actual labels here. Let's see if we have our galaxy cluster labels. Does anybody see a Coma in there? We're at about 300 million. Oh, there it is. Cute. Coma cluster. So usually I just fly out to the Virgo cluster. I don't really go out to the Coma cluster. It's not as populated, but it's cute. It's a little cluster, some galaxies in there to check out. And it's much further out. It's kind of, getting more out in the boonies, so to speak. Kind of the limit of like the distant galaxies that I can pick up with a 10-inch telescope under dark skies. So yeah, so there's lots of clusters. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you can maybe pick out some in Centaurus, or Norma's like way out there. I don't know. I've never tried. But yeah, lots and lots of galaxies. So spring is galaxy season, partly because we're looking like up out of the plane of the galaxy. And so we're not looking like along the edge, right? So if we're trying to look, if we look along the edge of our galaxy, just go ahead and turn off all the tullies and some of the labels. So if we're looking along the edge of our galaxy, it's going to be harder to see some of the stuff, right? Because there's all this gas and dust and other stars and things in the way. But if we're looking up out of the plane, then we can see a lot more further, a lot more clearly. And I see Dave has commented, fantastic, on a little bit more detail on NGC 4889. Yeah, big old elliptical. Great. E4. So the other really wonderful things that we have in the spring sky, and really they're kind of all over, but some of the best, not the best, mind you, but some of the best globular clusters are out in the spring. So I feel like I got a little off focus here. So I'm going to try a thing. Nope. Yep. Okay. Our globular clusters. So we have that data set too that I like to tinker with. And starting to lag a little bit. My computer is starting to get grumpy here. So we might just switch over to something else. Yeah. Sorry. There we go. Globular clusters. Ooh, yeah, yellow dots. Okay. So they're a lot prettier than that, obviously. So these are groups of several 100,000 to up to 1,000,000, in some cases a few more, collections of stars. Not fully understood how they formed, how they got to where they are, but they are in kind of a halo around the Milky Way galaxy. So some are in the plane, as we'll see as we sweep through the plane here, but then several are way off the plane. So there are some of the more distant objects that we see that are still part of our galaxy, still part of the Milky Way. So as you can see, like some in the plane, but some like way far up off of it. And I think some people have already listed some of my favorite globular clusters. So in the springtime, yep, we have M5, M3, we have M53. And then if you get to a little bit later, I'm just going to kind of pause this and we'll pop back over to Stellarium and just kind of see where some of those are. See if this will cooperate with me. As open space is taking up so much memory. But yeah, if we fast forward a little bit into late spring, so spring extends into June, so we'll do an early June view. We also have a few in Ophiuchus. So several of the brighter globular clusters are out here. So they're not the brightest things in the sky. So we're seeing like all these yellow circly things. Those are more open clusters, so smaller, closer groups of younger stars mostly. So arguably the best globular cluster in the northern sky is up here in the constellation Hercules. So that's the Hercules cluster. So definitely check that out. But then we also have M53 and M3 and M5. And Ophiuchus holds 9, 10, 11, and 12. You can zoom in here. There's a couple like really close together, kind of in the heart of Ophiuchus. There's 10, I want to say 12. Yeah, 12. And then you're getting more close to the Milky Way galactic plane. So that's kind of like cheating at this point. So yeah, so the rows, I don't really call it that. I just call it M5 in there. Of course, the best one is out in the summer. That's M15, the Christina cluster. Oh yeah, and M92 also up in Hercules. So some really great globular clusters, but really like 5, 3, and 53 are some of the brightest ones. And those are all out kind of in our springtime sky. So if we just zoom in on one, Hercules is great because it gets so high in the sky. And really, again, we want things to be pretty high in the sky to get the best view, because then we're looking through the thinnest layer of atmosphere in order to see them. So yeah, there's 92 popping in there. It's a little bit fainter, but still a nice one. Gets up high. And if we zoom in, you can see, if if you haven't seen a globular cluster in all its glory, it just looks like a big ball of sparkle. I feel like this doesn't quite do it justice, but yeah, big ball of sparkle. And again, I like sparkly things. So there you go. Springtime, great time around the new moons. We're looking out of the plane of the galaxy. We have dark, dark skies, and they look kind of blank and boring, but really we're looking for some fun, challenging things like really beautiful galaxies. You have your face on spirals, you have your edge on, like slivers and spindles and needles. I'm kind of partial to 45, 65. Totally want to nerd out. But then you also have these not so fuzzy, smudgy things that, are even more appealing to newer people who can be like, yes, that's bright and sparkly and pretty. And not just newer people, but also people like me who just like sparkly things. So those are basically our spring skies. The other thing that I have to mention is do the sparkles come with ice cream? Faisal's asking if the sparkles come with ice cream. Oh, Faisal, I'm so glad you asked. Yes, they do. There's a giant ice cream cone for all you ice cream fans. Yeah, I'm one of them. So we have nice globular cluster over here in Coma, Berenices. We have a globular cluster over here, and then we have the globular clusters over in Hercules and Serpens, and then right in between, there's a giant ice cream cone for you, right? So if you can't see the ice cream cone, I'll be posting it on my website. I'll bring a picture, but there's basically there's the ice cream cone, and there's the big blob of ice cream, and there's Irene's giant tongue about to lick the ice cream. That's no longer the Northern Crown. That's just Irene's tongue licking the ice cream cone. The last super fun thing that we have in the spring sky is a couple of really great meteor showers. So I feel like Ted and I may have mentioned these way back when we did our, best of 2021 stuff last December. But two kind of nice meteor showers coming up. We have first the Lyrids that are going to peak around April 22nd, which is because there's going to be kind of a lot of moon that night. So if we look over here towards the April, and the 22nd. Whoa, look at that moon. That's a lot of moon. Okay. And the Lyrids, again, the meteor showers, those are named after whatever constellation their radiant is in. So the constellation from which they appear to radiate. So for the Lyrids, that's going to be Lyra. So that's kind of over in the east in the late evening. So closer to midnight is really a better time to watch them, or the early hours of the morning. But there's still going to be an awful lot of moon out, which makes it kind of harder to see. Some of these are brighter because they tend to be faster and leave more streaky fireballs, which is great. But I would hold out if I were you, and I'm not, but this is me. I'm going to hold it out for the Eta Aquarids. So the Eta Aquarids they generally have more meteors per hour, and it's a little bit later, so it peaks around May 4th or 5th, and there's a bit of moon there, right? So the radiant for that is in Aquarius. So here comes Aquarius. And actually we should be able to see, yep, Eta Aquarids, so that radiant. So there we're looking out at 3 or 4 in the morning, just before moonrise. So you do have some moon there, but it's getting to be more of a sliver. It's last quarter. So if you're out in the early hours of the morning, basically just before moonrise, that should be a pretty decent view. And those are the ones that come from Halley's Comet, so a famous thing. So really, what's happening when we have a meteor shower is we're getting space debris. Whoops, wrong way. Go back home. So we have these comets that come in and sweep pretty close to the sun, and so they heat up and a lot of debris flies off of them. And that stuff doesn't just stop, right? So we have Newton's laws of motion. So the stuff keeps going and it's still orbiting the sun. And every year, the Earth in its orbit slams into a bunch of this debris. And so we get like these kind of regular showers of meteors. So the different meteor showers come from different parent bodies. And the Eta Aquarids, the debris from the Eta Aquarids is basically from Halley's Comet. So kind of a fun little thing there. The last thing that I meant to mention earlier that I forgot to mention is just that this coming week, April 12th, that's Monday, is Yuri's night. And it's not just any Yuri's night, y'all. It's the 60th anniversary. And if you don't know what Yuri's night is, then maybe listen to my mission of the month on the 15th, but then you will have already missed all the parties. So maybe look into it a little bit before then. Basically, Yuri's night is kind of what it sounds like, celebrating the anniversary of Yuri Gagarin's trip into space, the first person in space. So that happened 60 years ago this month. So a lot of people have parties or just like look up and wave at the ISS. So the people that are now in space, unfortunately from New York, we don't have any really great ISS passes on Monday. It's passing overhead, but we can't see it because it's not dark. So this is just from the ISS app, the ISS Finder. So if you're in a different place, check your location, check the apps to see if the ISS is going to be overhead. That's kind of a nice way to recognize people in space, because there are people in space, right? So that's all I've got tonight. This was super fun. I hope you had as much fun as I did, just kind of relaxing and poking around the spring skies. Looking forward to some dark sights, except for the whole rain thing this weekend. So maybe better luck in May. But yeah, this was your Thursday evening stroll around our celestial neighborhood, checking out what's going to be happening over the next few months, and we'll get updates every week. I'm Irene Pease, your friendly neighborhood astronomer, and we've been using Stellarium from stellarium.org, an open space that you can find and download for free at openspaceproject.com. Clear skies, everyone. Be safe out there. Don't forget to wear a mask.